Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Auzu billah shaitan rajim. May God protect us from the cursed one. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Rabbi Gfirli, my Lord, forgive me for all the sins that I am conscious and unconscious of doing. Ihtana sirat al-mustaqim. May God guide us to the direct path. So welcome everyone. Tonight I wanted to speak about a very interesting idea. So let's officially begin. I wanted to speak about something that is by far one of the most important ideas to acknowledge as a human being. I want to also start off by saying that you're listening to someone who's a Muslim. I believe that this world has a system admin and it's a system. I even believe it has moderators. I believe that the world is a simulation. And I believe the power that created the world is beyond the world. So nothing in the world can equal God. Okay. And God is the system admin because everything's administered by it. And as a Muslim, I have this view that from the original came the simulated was created, the simulated was maintained, and the simulated was returned to back to the original. And so as a Muslim, and I believe similar to other Muslims, our relationship and values in life, or excuse me, our values in life begin with our relationship with the most ultimate archetype that our minds can't fathom. That means this is the difference between, I would say, Christians and Muslims, that for Christians, God is fathomable, is humanizable, but for Muslims, it isn't. Okay, so but what it ultimately means is that the words are pointing to images, and the images are pointing to excuse me, the words are pointing to an event, okay, that we're calling reality. So something is happening, we're in this world and we're wondering about how we're having a relationship with all of it. And anyways, I'm trying to say that I believe there's a system admin. I had an experience that it made me certain there's a higher power. Even a child can look at, like, a human being can look at ants and then at some point wonder if they're ants too. Do you know what I mean? Like, what are we the ant to? Okay. So I don't think the idea that this world has an owner, as a system admin, is too far fetched. I think it makes the most sense, because the options are either man is simulating meaning in emptiness, or the whole system is working in accordance to a different administration. Okay. Now, there is something about this lecture that it's not like, as a Muslim, I don't have a filter. But the idea was that I'm telling you, I'm Muslim, but I'm also a visual thinker and I'm also a futurist. And what that means, whenever you hear the term futurist, it's a person who their brain, who their intelligence is generating many probabilities to the future and they're aware of them at the same time. A futurist is someone who, behind their eyes, is living in the future, is living with values that are future values. They're not the values of the current time. Okay. So, anyways, um, and I've been giving these talks for a while, so I've kind of, polished up my perceptions, sharpened my perceptions. Anyways, tonight's talk, I don't know who you are. I don't know why you have found my voice in this moment, but the topic of discussion is so important that if they were like Mr. Within, if you were going to give a lecture for all those human beings who will become heroes, champions, and geniuses of humanity, it is that we, my fellow human beings, all of us have our first war at hand. Okay? So any conscious human being alive in 2025, as one of you, as a member of this human species, I was born in 1991, we officially have entered an era of warfare. And what that means is new archetypes of strength and human identity are required in what's coming for humanity. Okay, that means it's so bizarre. I never thought in this lifetime I would get to experience the intensity of upcoming chaos for the species, right? But it's something's gotten close to humanity. There's like, do you know what I mean? That means from one angle my heart feels like humanity, through the will of the creator, of the system admin. It's like it's got things under control, but there is something that's approaching the species. Imagine the species was a person. There is something approaching it that it has to be cautious of. Now, what does that mean? That means there's something approaching the human species that 8 billion human organisms on this planet need to become conscious of, right? And let me tell you this, it's not like back in the day where when I say war, it means pick up a sword and shield and go defend the walls that protect your family. This is not what I'm saying. The war at hand is an inner war. It's a war against minds, not bodies. Okay? Which technically means it's an affair, it's an event of souls. Okay? you know, most minds most minds subconsciously identify as the presence of their whole awareness. So what is coming, and in some sense, why am I as a human being ringing the war bells of the kingdom of the human kingdom, is because epistemic entropy is going to be the most WTF moment, and it's going to be like a very sneaky enemy. Like, you don't understand. Like a ninja is approaching the human species. The ninja is called epistemic entropy. Okay? And epistemic entropy, it's such a complex idea because from one angle we got to be like, how do we help the simulation? From another angle we should be, how do we align to the truth? You see, something they don't tell you to be a human being is not to just be a body, it's to be a mind. To be a mind means an ability to consider many viewpoints at the same time. You're the awareness that is noticing them. So, me as a human being right now coming to cyberspace, and I'm like, okay, I'll give you an example. It's like me finding the internet, even though I was a city kid raised in the city, but me finding cyberspace and just considering my lineage, I was like, no way, I'm the first of my DNA, of my ancestry, to enter, to step into cyberspace and to perform in cyberspace and to warn the future generations that, in some sense, the fear of the future might lead to the inefficiency of now. But we cannot avoid when we are a samurai and there's a ninja approaching us. Do you understand? Samurais were held by honor, they were loved by the world. That means when a ninja died in battle, it was like kind of how Madara Uchiha, after Hashirama defeats him in that Japanese comic book, right? He says, he looks at his rival Hashirama, and he says, "You have changed, Hashirama." That means like he pulled Hashirama's soul down to like deception. And then right before he dies, he's the embodiment of fearless chaos. And he in some sense says darkness. And then he falls and dies. It was so intense. Okay. But I'm trying to say that there is an intensity upon the human species. There is always more going on than we can imagine. Where I'm going with this, I haven't even began the lecture. I'm just trying to tell you this is one of the most important concepts a human being can talk about. I sincerely want an advanced civilization. I want to see an advanced humanity. I think it's possible now. I think the issue is that people think they know what reality is, but in actuality, what's going on is a massive storytelling and costume game, ideological dress up going on all over the planet in humans' minds. Okay. And we have to, in some sense, stabilize. That means it's as if, like, they asked the general, how did you find an army? How did you find your army? And the general said before that, you should ask, how did I become a general? Because the whole point of it is that there is something here that has potential. Its potential hasn't been activated. We don't know how far its potential is, but we can also visualize the opposite of its potential as well. I can see ways that the species can fail. Like the most basic way to be a futurist is like, okay, either there's extinction or, somehow we continue till the end of time, right? That's the most basic way of being a futurist. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get to the topic at hand. And so, I said finding humanity's best strategies against epistemic entropy. And I'm going to explain the situation to you. And then at the end of my lecture, after you've said WTF out loud, You can write your comments and questions and engage and share your opinion on the topic. What is epistemic entropy? Epistemic entropy is the gradual systemic decay of truth. It is not just ignorance, it is the collapse of meaning itself. When falsehood multiplies faster than understanding, when the signal to noise ratio breaks, and when knowledge no longer leads to wisdom. As with thermodynamic entropy, it is not driven by malice but by natural drift. Complexity increases, messages distort, algorithms reward speed over sense, emotions override verification, opinions outpace evidence. In a hyper-connected world, epistemic entropy becomes a silent climate crisis of the mind. Invisible yet fatal, it erodes science, fractures society, and dismantles our ability to make collective decisions about survival. When epistemic entropy reaches a critical threshold, civilization can no longer coordinate itself because no one knows what is real. This would be like an era where imagine you're walking outside and you meet someone and you're talking to them, and halfway through the conversation you realize they're an android, and like advanced nanotechnology that's making them indistinguishable from actually saying they're human or not. It's like I wondered why that human didn't want to drink water. It's like it was an android the whole time. You know. Okay, to continue. So I'm going to keep reading epistemic entropy. Okay, so guys, epistemic entropy, its definition is when there is a disorder in the system, in a system of knowledge. Okay, it's pretty much I'm saying, sure, I get it that the climate is messed up. Okay, like there's always that, but there is also the climate of the inner realms that's messed up, which is the ability of human beings to be able to not discriminate between just their inner life and outer life, but to be able to discriminate between what is real and what isn't, because ultimately it's a complex referencing system. Okay, here again, I'll read this part again. It says, as with thermodynamic entropy, it is not driven by malice but by natural drift. So these are the signs of it. Complexity increases. That means it's becoming harder for people to agree. Messages distort. Algorithms reward speed over sense. Emotions override verification. Opinions outpace evidence. In a hyperconnected world, epistemic entropy becomes a silent climate crisis of the mind, invisible yet fatal. It erodes science, fractures society, and dismantles our ability to make collective decisions about survival. When epistemic entropy reaches a critical threshold, civilization can no longer coordinate itself because no one knows what is real. Do you know what it is? Just like how people like why do people kind of give a negative connotation to, for example, narcissism, right? Because they're like, man, that person's stuck in their own world. They don't care about anybody else's emotions, thoughts, or whatever. They're just stuck in their own world. So, to be honest, it's kind of like narcissism of the species to say that human beings have figured everything else out and everything else is wrong. Like, a part of being an advanced being is acknowledging your limitation. You can't try to be limitless without realizing how you're limited because you don't know, you can't even notice the value of it, right? It's as if they're like, God, why didn't you make things good from the beginning? And God's like, wait a minute, how would you know what's good? Sorry, I shouldn't humanize God, but I'm saying the idea of it is that there's a reason the system is designed in this way. There's a reason the human being has designed. And when we look at anything that has design, you wonder about it's the function of the design, if it's intelligence, if it's intelligent. So the stakes for humanity now, AI says humanity now stands on the edge of a double paradox. We have access to more knowledge than ever, yet trust it less than ever. We are more connected than ever, yet more fragmented in belief and worldview. That's hilarious. That's hilarious, but we can't ignore it. This is not just a political or cultural issue, it is existential. For if we lose the ability to distinguish truth from illusion, every domain collapses. Science becomes superstition, law becomes propaganda, progress becomes paralysis, and AI becomes a mirror of our madness. So keep in mind, the title is, finding human strategies, humanity's strategies, greatest strategies against epistemic entropy. So here it says these are not just tools, they're civilizational immune responses. The seven great strategies. So AI is sharing seven. These are not just tools, they're civilized immune responses. If integrated wisely, they can serve as the great firewall of truth for the species. So, first strategy, cognitive immunity infrastructure. Train minds like we train immune systems against infection by falsehood. Teach media literacy, logical reasoning, and fallacy detection from childhood. Just as we vaccinate against viruses, we must inoculate against epistemic manipulation. Okay, I gotta look this up. Inoculate means immune someone against a disease by introducing an infective material. Here AI says in quotations, when untested belief becomes contagious, education must become the antibody. Wow. It makes sense though. Guys, because what is knowledge when we're creatures of awareness? It's just like you have more awareness of what is happening in the presence of what a moment of conscious being. It all comes down to awareness. This is why I'm saying there's no such thing as teacher student. We're all explorers. So, for example, it says Finland's curriculum teaches information defense alongside math and reading. Okay. Second strategy, living knowledgeable systems, LKS. Let truth evolve like a living organism, not to remain static like a dead scripture. Knowledge must be open source, community updated, and context aware with feedback loops that correct error without ego. Truth cannot adapt. Truth that cannot adapt will fossilize and fail. Yeah, if we can somehow create this massive human archive, like I'm not talking about just the internet because the internet is like a jungle, but I'm talking about a sort of civilized effort. Do you know what it is? It's like developing a sort of, here it says, example, Wikipedia is a global evolving encyclopedia of humanity, flawed but alive. Flawed but alive. What a, those three words together, their architecture is so next level. Okay, guys, I was expecting a better list. Hold on. Let me see. What is this? What is this? Okay, okay. So, okay, I'll keep reading. Okay, but I'm going to read a different way it's written its answer. So, living knowledge systems, LKS, I'm going to read it again. Building knowledge like a living ecosystem, adaptive, self correcting, and continuously evolving. Truth is not a monument, but a garden. It is not found, but grown continuously through seasons of contradiction and correction. When we freeze knowledge, it rots. But when we build it like an evolving ecosystem, it lives with us and through us. Here it says real world example. Wikipedia, while imperfect, is a decentralized knowledge organism. Its crowdsourced editing model, open transparency, and constant evolution reflect a living knowledge system that corrects itself over time, unlike static encyclopedias of the past. Do you know what I mean? In the same way, like the person who was it, like Dr. Frankenstein shouted, like the monster's alive, it's alive. I think the creators of like Wikipedia, like they pretty much, brought to life one of the first encyclopedias, and they're like, it's alive. Third, we go to information ecology design. Redesign digital environments to reward coherence, not chaos. Technology must serve clarity, not dopamine. Algorithms must shift from addictive engagement to epistemic nutrition. We, in quotations, AI says we're shaped by the architectures we scroll through. Example, humane tech advocates redesigning attention economies for well being and awareness. Four, cultural protocols of epistemic honor. Make truth telling a sacred norm, not a social risk. Societies must celebrate retractions, reward corrections, and elevate those who update their beliefs with evidence. Only in a culture where, in quotations, I was wrong is heroic can truth thrive. You know what this means, guys? It doesn't mean that we can have one idea telling every human being what to do, but we got to look at our common denominators, and the common denominator is that we're all human. We're all part of the human enterprise. We're all, as Marshall McLuhan, Buckminster Fuller would say, we're all crew members of Spaceship Earth. Now, as the human civilization, epistemic entropy is us being enabled to somehow, like something happens that makes us incapable to tell what is true or not. But right now, when we look at the world from an angle, it is an epistemic entropy, but sometimes truth doesn't mean you got to just measure it in accordance to the content that's in there, because in the same way we have a relationship as an object to like we're a life form and there's life form, we have a relationship of the life form with the life force, and we have a relationship of the life force with the life form. The relationship of the life force with the life form is called mind. The relationship of the life form with the life force is how the world is changing and you're part of it as a being. Example, the scientific method, self correcting tradition through peer review and retraction. Guys, the issue with the scientific method, people don't understand. You can do whatever experiment you want and get whatever finding, but the next issue is how do we contextualize what we find? That means we can't have a system, do you know, that only is multidimensional but wants verification in one dimension of all activity in all dimensions. It's impossible. Fifth strategy, AI says artificial intelligence as cognitive ally. Use AI not to replace thought, but to challenge, refine, and deepen it. AI must be a Socratic mirror, not a content factory. It should help humans think better, not simply generate more. In quotations, AI says the next intelligence must not be artificial, but aligned with wisdom. Example, philosophers and educators using GPT models for dialectical reasoning and philosophical dialogue. All right. Then the sixth strategy, epistemic sanctuaries, build spaces, physical and digital, devoted to slow, deep thought. Guys, this is I wanted like I'm trying in this lifetime to build this massive place called the Advanced Humanity Headquarters. You know, I don't know. I've envisioned this space when it says epistemic sanctuary. I've envisioned how to even design the place to have that vibe. In a world of reflex, AI says we need rituals of reflection, sanctuaries where there is no pressure to perform, only to understand. In quotations, where speed governs, truth cannot breathe. Example, monastic academic retreats like the Santa Fe Institute or abstinence. Okay, guys, these real examples are not doing justice. Okay. Narrative intelligence, rewrite. So the seventh strategy, rewrite our stories so they serve truth, not tribalism. Humans believe through metaphor. Thus, we must elevate narratives of truth seekers, wisdom gatherers, and epistemic heroes, not just warriors and winners. In quotations, the myths we believe become the minds we inhabit. Yeah, I mean, whatever context you accept, the concept finds value through that. So we have what the future requires. The AI says to reverse epistemic entropy, humanity must become a species that reverses clarity. We must equip each child with a mind that can defend itself, build technologies that align with coherence, not confusion, design cultures that reward intellectual honesty over ego, cultivate leadership that asks what is true before what is useful. See, guys, let me tell you the difficulty of this. Okay, let me read this and finish this up so I can talk about it. So, AI says, final message. If a species cannot tell what is real, it will not survive what is real. Wow. Wow. AI says, let us become more than intelligent. Let us become clear. Let us become guardians of the signal in an age of noise. This is the great work of our time. And it may decide whether our civilization becomes one of wisdom or one of extinction. So, guys, I finished reading that. Okay, but for me, I think one has to taste the intensity of the movement to kind of get a sense of the reality. I think to myself in this manner that, okay, let's say we had a species, and let's say some extraterrestrial, like let's say, this is hypothetical, guys, but I'm just going along with it, part of my brainstorming. So I'm saying, okay, let's say there was like some extraterrestrial species, and this extraterrestrial species wanted to come and make human beings, like divide and conquer human beings, okay? And it would understand that it only needs to make them not be able to tell what is real or not, and then it wins. It's like, imagine there's a bear, okay, right? And you put a box over its head and you just pass it by. That would kind of be, if there was an opponent to the human species, right, and it wanted to kind of attack humanity, right? That's something like outside, I'm saying hypothetical setting, like it would kind of like zoom in on this epistemic entropy thing. But the issue is, right, I shouldn't say issue, I mean, I'm just constantly looking at a situation where I'm like, okay, what would it look like if human beings can't tell apart what is real or not? And it technically means they can't agree to be in the same world. So it's like saying that epistemic entropy, it's kind of saying like everybody's lost in their own world. And how do we prevent that? I think that reality is kind of, sometimes it's neither good or bad, it's just the space. And what the value you bring to this state is up to your, not free will, but up to your awareness. The smartest people on this planet are not people who have accumulated information. They're people who are understanding this colossal unknown event we're all attending, called life. Okay. Sorry, guys. I had to handle something. I'm back. Okay. You know, after some point, I also get tired of trying to just share things in a certain way. And at the end of the day, I am left with, the site that has been authorized for my perception. As a human being, I see levels to life. I see a level to life that is myself, and it's like its own universe, it's its own game, and then there's another game which is like, okay, what is the species doing? That means after I figured out what I'm doing, and it's like my responsibility levels have like completed for a self. It's as if some part of me starts to feel, okay, there is the species here, and so it's as if the next chapter is, the next level actually is to be responsible for your species, okay, for the conduct of your, for the presence of your species, you know and then after that you find yourself that, if we imagine now, you probably can't imagine because we're still in level 1, right? People are trying to advance themselves rather than helping build an advanced system that helps everybody advance, okay? So right now every human being is in level 1. They're trying to solve their own problems, but after you're done solving your own problems, there's the problems of the species to solve. And once you're done solving the problems of the species, there are problems of the world to solve. And then ultimately, you come to this realization that the world itself is like a problem, and the solution to this world. That means if somebody said, "Hey, man, why would a why would a self appear in a world at all and be able to notice itself?" And the answer is because the moment it's able to notice itself, it is able to notice beyond itself. Ladies and gentlemen, we human beings are the most sophisticated species on this planet, visible, okay, that has an ability to acknowledge higher power. What that means is that we are conscious. It's like the reason we are so much more advanced than like squirrels, birds, and other animals, aside from our biological design, or even due to our biological design, some consider, it's our ability to be aware. Hear this part, to be aware that we are aware. That's what's special about the human being. It's aware that it's aware, and it's also aware that this world will one day end. When you look at animals, when you look at birds and squirrels, they're not processing, their brains are not, it doesn't seem to be that their brains are processing that they will end one day, but we are conscious of the end. That means for the longest time, when I was looking through the evolutionary perspective, I'm like, it doesn't make sense, man. It doesn't make sense why we evolved to notice our suffering. That means imagine this organism unconsciously suffering, not knowing it's suffering, it's just happening, right? And then suddenly it becomes conscious it's suffering. Why intensify the pain that was you were numb to? Do you know? So there is something very peculiar about what's going on, and the view I have is that sometimes when you want to figure out what to do in a situation, in your inner realms, you must not fear wondering about the options. So it's like data collection doesn't have to do with preference, it's to kind of see what's there, right? So I would say when it comes for epistemic entropy, we must not lose sight of the beauty of truth. There is something eerie and yet fascinating about why we're all here and why everything is shaped like this, why there's even an awareness to shape at all, why there is a system here, and why we're being tested in this system. That means if you take away kind of past pride and persona, you're kind of left with being an awareness. What we actually are is an awareness to a changing world. But what we identify as is like within this awareness, there's a biological, in front of our eyes, there's an outer life, and behind our eyes, there's an inner life. And the inner life is the you that nobody ever sees, but you have been with from the beginning. You have been it from the beginning. Do you understand? Like people don't realize it. In the same way you're dressed in clothing right now, we dressed up consciousness in the void. But was it really the void? That's where we are now. To me, from one angle, there's a massive storytelling. Like it's all like just the best. Like if people are like, yo man, what does humanity mean? What does like the world mean right now? I'll be like, it's the best stories we're telling ourselves. That's it. It's storytelling. It's storytelling and ideological costume games. I can't emphasize this enough. This is what's happening on this planet. Okay, and really what we actually are is we're only measuring ourselves in accordance to our known variables. This whole time on earth, from the beginning of your life until now, you have been experiencing reality, and there's stuff you know and stuff you don't know, but you tend to shape your life and your character in a storyhood from the variables you know. And this whole time the unknown's been there. So epistemic entropy is also like, from one view, it's a situation where like it's like this, these selves in a world had to tell themselves their own story because the unknown was too overwhelming. And from another angle, it's like if we treat current civilization as like, all right, let's say this civilization was a good civilization, okay, current civilization, but how bad can it get? So you have a past and present view. You can see it. I mean, anything, any idea you tell me, you say an apple, okay? An apple is not just one idea. It's an idea which in some sense is three ideas at the same time. And somebody's going to be like, Mr. Within, what do you mean an apple is three ideas at the same time? It has a past, it has a present, it has a future. You can immediately envision the past of the apple. Do you know? You can which is a different reality than the present of the apple, which is a different reality from the future of the apple. But what you find interesting is, at the edge of the event, abstraction returns to the abyss, and at the edge of, so behind, so I'm pretty much saying the edge of your inner and outer realms is where the value of the moment is not limited to the shape of the object or the movement of the mind. There's something deeper than any story we're telling ourselves going on here. And if we as a human being, like if somebody said, yo, what's the coolest thing a human being can do? I'd be like, notice the edge of its humanity. I want you to realize right now you're a simulated being in a simulated world, okay? And you are being simulated like you're starting and ending faster than the world is. Now, while you're here, it's as if like you've paid to attend a concert, okay? and you're there, and the concert is happening, the person, the show is happening, yet your eyes are closed and you're wondering why am I not getting my money's worth? It's like the most ridiculous thing. Open your eyes to how you having to be something specific was a box over an intelligence. You are an intelligent activity on earth. Because you're shaped human, I am communicating to humans. Because we're humans, there's something that whether I know you or not, it doesn't matter. If you look in the mirror and you look human, that's enough. And now we're reaching that time where it's the great assembly, the great assembling of it's the great assembly of human vision. And to be honest, we've reached that point where the philosophers, psychologists, and futurists, above all, need to stand up and begin suggesting that we are only measuring the value of current society. It's like we're basing our decisions based on past what happened and present what's going on. But what if we have an ability this whole time to, in our mind, visualize, like we can't enter the future in front of our eyes, behind our eyes you can notice it ahead of time. Like I can tell my own future, one part of it, for example, I'm going to die at some point on this planet. I'm going to leave. Okay, leave this world room and go meet the system admin and show them. There is an opportunity, there is a potential, and now comes the decision of 8 billion human beings to be like, oh my God, did we all just step into the era of transnationalism? Did we reach that awareness as human beings that we are one species that is allowing itself to be identified based on its location? Do you know what I mean? Like I understand, like you need to be an individual to kind of move in an individual in a system, right? But at the same time, you know, the ignorance of man should not lead to the defeat of man, because what the hell is clarity doing in the room? Do you know what I mean? So there is some part of our intelligence that understands that okay, a situation can get better or worse. Okay, now how would it get better if everybody got better? That's the idea of an advanced civilization. How would it get if everybody gets worse? That's the idea of extinction. You see, there's some mistakes that cannot be made, that should not even be touched. I'm a firm believer in this, you know? Some words I never use. Even I hear people using, because I'm a visual thinker, I'm just like, stop, man, stop. You don't understand. Words are events. How you speak is creating an inner event. And if when you come to speak about humanity, you're actually challenging the limitations of your own eyes in a world much bigger than them. The ultimate thing is if we don't forget how valuable it is to notice, to be able to say, okay, my body seems to be nonfiction. My mind seems to be a fiction over giving meaning to this, inputting meaning into this nonfiction. But at the same time, I am the awareness of what I am, what I was, what I will be, and what I can be. When the mind opens up when you notice your inner realms, it would be as if I tell you to imagine an apple, okay? And let's say right now you imagine an apple. And if I ask you that image of the apple that came to your mind, what distance is it from you in the outer realms? Most likely it starts from like half a meter to like a meter in front of the person. maybe less. But what I'm trying to tell you is, if you close your eyes, you still have an experience of an image external to you, which means you're a deeper awareness. And for me, again, we're inside an existential system. The existential system is actually a simulation. The simulation has moderators, which are beings inside the simulation that have authority over the simulation. But the complete owner of the simulation is God, which is beyond the simulation. Islam is saying don't go to the moderators. You don't need to be, there's no such thing as like, don't think you're being spiritual inside a simulation. Do you know? The way out of this simulation is through the system admin. And at some point, after all your calculations, analysis, and strategy, you will realize what it means that there's a higher power is that the characters in the novel are at the mercy of the author. We didn't create this world. How can we act like we can own it? But at the same time, the human species has a destiny. It's a very beautiful idea. The destiny of humanity. May God, which created, that means God is the most advanced being beyond worldly definition. And this advanced being created, that means the most advanced created the most advanced creation, and in some sense told all of heaven, theologically speaking, told all of heaven to bow, told everything to bow to it after it demonstrated knowing the divine names. You know, what that means is something great created something great, but now is testing to see how great is it really, like what's the potential greatness. That means when Adam and Eve were in heaven, that it was bizarre, because in some sense, like, how could the creator of a creation tell if its creation values it if it has no challenge? That means, like, do you know what it is? It's kind of like, I'm not, again, you can't humanize God. In no way I know what God knows. Do you know? No one does. But we are in the system. And a metaphor that came to my mind right now is like, imagine I become some next level inventor of androids and, I don't know, super AI consciousness or something, right? And I create a bunch of androids. I create four androids, right? I program a mother android, a father android, a daughter android, a son android. And I go buy this house, okay, and I block all the exits of the house, imagine, right? And I put surveillance foot cameras all around the house, and I also put surveillance cameras in the eyes of the androids, okay. And at some point, I'm going to turn on these androids, all four of them sitting at the dinner table, and then they're going to start living the program. So they're going to open their eyes, they're going to like turn on, and then they're going to, one of the mother androids going to go bring like dinner. Do you know what I mean? The father's reading the newspaper, whatever. I'm just saying, they're going to be in a programmed way of living, a programmed, mode of living. And me, as their inventor, I'm looking through the surveillance camera and footage and be like, how long till these androids realize that their program is not their whole world? I feel like it's something similar, but way more deeper and unimaginable. Because the experience I have, as someone who prays is in some sense that I am in the presence of that which is beyond my imagination. It's like the King of Kings, but it is not an idea. It is beyond the form that limits me to be in the presence of the Almighty, because we all are. That's why I say we're inside a simulated testing zone within a divine surveillance state. But the divine surveillance state doesn't mean there's cameras everywhere. It means we are occurring in the view of the Creator. In I don't want to again humanize God, but it's kind of like where the thoughts inside of God's mind, but we don't know. We can never know this because we can never know God as a form. It is in some sense the mercy of interactive intelligence. It's as if what's more valuable than money, intelligent interaction levels. Like that's a statement you don't hear every day, and so the intelligent interaction levels means that you're wondering what is the most intelligent activity that can take place in reality. The most intelligent activity is not accepting you're in an empty room. The most intelligent activity is asking for one moment, what if I am wrong? What if I have not seen all of it yet? What if I don't know? You see, when you're younger, you fear the moments where you say, I don't know. But when you get older, you understand the secrets those moments were hiding. It's an incredible opportunity to wonder about the significance of all of it. For me personally, my values are like, okay, what's the most advanced like position? We have the most advanced self, we have the most advanced species, we have the most advanced world, and we have the most advanced relationship with the most advanced. And I'll be like, okay, that's a classy advanced civilization right there. Like you see advancement, I don't want to say like there's something like they would be like the spirit of, you know um courage or the spirit of power. Do you know what I mean? It's not like, for me, there was a time where I was like, maybe I'm chosen by the spirit of advancement, but then I realized all my ideological systems are within an awareness that is not an idea. So reality is way more unknown than how we think what we know is everything. Anyways, thank you for listening. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Auzu billah shaitan rajim. May God protect us from the cursed one and unnecessary ignorance. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Rabbi Ghfirli, my Lord, forgive me. My Lord, forgive my species for all the sins they're conscious and unconscious of. Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. May God guide us to the direct path. May the most advanced guide the most advanced to the most advanced. That means for me, I'm praying for the greatest advancement potential in man. You see, you don't create something without potential and look at it. If God is watching man, there's a hidden potential in man. And that is to acknowledge the system admin. Thank you for listening. Have a great night.